HOA stole my yard, so I stole the HOA. I never thought I'd see the day when strangers in pressed suits, clipboards in hand, would march into my yard like soldiers invading foreign land, declare that everything I had built, every flower, every swing, every blade of grass, wasn't mine anymore. Violation, they said. Out of compliance, they scribbled. But here's the part they didn't see coming. The moment they tried to take my yard, they didn't just start a petty neighborhood dispute. They declared war on me. And war, well, war has rules. But revenge. Revenge, DOESN. Single quotes, this is the story of how the HOA stole my yard. So I stole the HOA, and let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. Atmosphere builds, narration slows. Voice sharpens. What would you do if someone tried to take away the one place in this world that actually felt like home? Because I didn't just fight back. I dismantled them piece by piece until the same people who once terrorized me were begging me for mercy. But before you think, some kind of hero, let me be clear: heroes play by the rules. I didn't. I became something else. My name's Daniel. 42 years old, father of 2, husband to the most patient woman alive, Emily. We bought our home in Willow Creek 10 years ago. It wasn't fancy modest, really, but it had a yard. A yard big enough for Emily's flower garden, for my kids' swing set, for Sunday BBQs. It was our safe place. Across the street lived Margaret Hensley, president of the HOA. She wasn't just a neighbor. She was a dictator crowned by a clipboard. Everyone feared her. She'd fine people for having the wrong shade of curtains. She once banned Christmas lights past January 5th, banned them, but for years she left me alone. Until the day she DN single quotes. It started small. A letter taped to my door: remove unapproved structures. The swing set. Then, your lawn exceeds length regulation. Then, your fence is non-compliant. I laughed at first. Thought it was a mistake. But soon, the notices piled up like war drums. Margaret was circling, and one afternoon, she stood right in my yard. Her thin smile stretched across her face like a blade. This yard isn't yours, she said coldly. It belongs to the HOA. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Because she wasn't just trying to take grass and wood. She was trying to take us. The harassment grew like wildfire. Fines arrived weekly: $100, $250, $500. Emily cried at the kitchen table, clutching the bills. Danny, we can't keep up with this, she whispered. I appealed to the board. I showed photos, permits, receipts. But every time, Margaret overruled me. Every time the vote was unanimous, her cronies nodding along like puppets. I tried ignoring them. Then came the threats. Letters saying liens would be placed on my house. Neighbors began avoiding me, afraid they'd be targeted if they spoke to me. I watched my kids retreat indoors. The laughter in our backyard faded. One night, I caught a man with a clipboard measuring my fence in the dark. When I confronted him, he muttered, "Just following orders." That's when I realized this wasn't incompetence. It was war, so I started fighting back. I documented everything. Every notice, every whispered threat, every petty violation. But Margaret was slippery. Whenever I tried to present my evidence at meetings, she'd shut me down. You're out of time. Daniel, you're out of order. Daniel, you're out of compliance. Daniel. It became her mantra. The worst was when she sent the sheriff to my door, claiming I was trespassing on HOA property. My yard, I'll never forget the look in my son Jacob's eyes as uniformed men stood on our porch. He whispered, "Dad, are we in trouble?" That's when my resolve hardened into steel. But the more I resisted, the more she escalated. Suddenly, neighbors who once waved now glared. Rumors spread. Daniel's violent. Daniel's unstable. Daniel's dangerous, it was psychological warfare, and she was winning. Until the night I broke into her office. It wasn't planned. Not really. The HOA office was in the community center, a squat brick building no one ever used. But one evening, as I drove past, I noticed the lights still on. Margaret's car parked outside. Something pulled me in. I slipped through the side door, heart pounding. The place smelled of stale coffee and paper. Her office door was ajar, and there on her desk were the files. Stacks of them. Curiosity became obsession. I flipped open a folder, saw my name, my property photos, every violation she'd ever fabricated. But then, something else. Bank statements, tens of thousands of dollars. Gone. Funneled through maintenance funds and legal fees. But the maintenance was never done. The legal fights didn't exist. She wasn't just abusing power, she was embezzling, and deeper still, files on other neighbors. Some forced into foreclosure. Their homes sold at auction. And guess who bought them cheap? Margaret. She wasn't protecting the neighborhood. She was profiting off destroying it. That night, I knew. This wasn't just my fight. It was everyone's. But if I wanted to win, I couldn't just expose her. I had to become her. I started small. Quietly gathering Allie's people Margaret had wronged. Sarah, whose Christmas lights fine nearly bankrupted her. Mr. Lawson, fined for having a non-compliant mailbox. We met in basements, garages, whispered plans over coffee. Piece by piece, I showed them the evidence. Their anger grew. Their fear turned into resolve, and then came the meeting. The HOA's quarterly board gathering, Margaret's stage, her kingdom. She walked in that night, smug as ever, clipboard in hand. But the room was different. The whispers weren't of fear anymore. They were of defiance. When she called the meeting to order, I stood. "I have evidence," I said firmly. Her eyes narrowed. "You're out of order, Daniel." But this time, I wasn't alone. Sarah stood. Then Lawson. Then half the room. We laid it all out, copies of the bank statements, photos, testimony. The room buzzed like a hive. Margaret's mask cracked. "You think this proves anything?" She hissed, her voice trembling. But for the first time, her words fell flat. The board members shifted uneasily. One even stood and said, "Margaret, is this true?" Her control slipped through her fingers like sand. She shouted, she threatened, but it was too late. By the end of the night, she was voted out. Removed as president, and me. By unanimous vote, I was elected interim president. I hadn't just beaten her. I had stolen her throne. Aftermath and reflection. 27 minutes and 0 seconds to 30 minutes and 0 seconds, approximately 400 words the days after, felt surreal. Margaret was gone under investigation, whispers of subpoenas circling like vultures. And me. I walked through my yard, the oak tree swaying gently, my kids laughing on the swing set again. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Neighbors approached me, some apologizing, some thanking me. Sarah hugged me. Lawson shook my hand. "You saved this place," he said. But I knew better. I hadn't saved it. I'd simply exposed the rot that had been growing for years. And as Emily's roses bloomed again, I realized this wasn't just about a yard. It was about reclaiming our lives, our voices. Justice wasn't just served in courtrooms. It was served right there, in the laughter of my children, in the unity of neighbors once afraid to speak. My yard was mine again. But more than that, I was mine again. I thought it was over. Life returned to normal. The HOA now tread lightly. Margaret's name became a ghost story. Until the envelope arrived, no return address. No stamp. Just slipped under my door. Inside, a single typed sentence. "You didn't steal the HOA. You inherited its enemies." At the bottom, a symbol. A gavel over a set of scales. Emily's face went pale. "What does it mean?" She whispered, but I already knew. Margaret wasn't working alone. Someone had funded her, shielded her, and now they were watching me. That night, as the wind rattled the fence, I stared into the darkness and realized my fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Audience question: if you uncovered that your enemy was only a pawn in something bigger, would you keep fighting or would you run? Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because this story isn't finished yet.